and this question of how do you prevent mission drift, or put it more positively, put a mission lock on an enterprise, is a really important question. And I'm going to answer the question with a question, because it is a very nuanced conversation. I think you need to think about what kind of capital you're trying to attract. Are you trying to attract debt or equity or grants, philanthropic? Some legal forms will be more appropriate for certain types of investment than others. While you're in the investment, the other question is, how long do you want that capital if you're the enterprise, or how long does the capital willing to be in your enterprise? So one is, what is the form of investment you're looking at? The second is, what is the duration of the investment? There's been some really interesting, and you've already alluded to some of this, interesting things that people are doing with respect to investments while they're in as social enterprises. And so things that we've seen people do, the simplest probably being majority control. If you want a mission lock, you make sure that the mission is held by someone who has the most money, or at least the most shares of the company. Then there are some that are starting to say, okay, we're going to have more and more capital needs. I don't think I'm going to be able to keep putting more capital in. At some point, I'm going to be diluted. And that's when people start talking about golden shares of votes, where you could say, hey, can't do it without me saying yes, whoever the keeper of that mission claim is. And then we also see some work on this, but it's limited, and it's limited for a good reason. Some people are thinking about putting limits on transferability of investments. It could be the debt investment or the equity. It's more often talked about in the equity context, but I've seen it with eligible assignees in a long-term loan as well. And those votes, or those requirements of who can come in and acquire an investment, is a very interesting one, because so long as these are buy and hold investments, and I think we've seen really recent research coming out of the Tonic Group that suggested that the current state of impact investing, investors have been pretty comfortable with illiquid investments, the current group. But that's not going to get to the big money. The big money needs more liquidity in the system. And so the more limitations you put on the transferability of shares and interest, the less you're going to be able to get to those larger amounts of funding. So that one, I think you have to really weigh very carefully. That's while you're in an investment. Going beyond the investment, one of the things that I've seen the most effective, and I know some of the people who are in the webinar, I'm looking at the names here, have done this very effectively, is if you think about your relationship as an investor with a company as not just a one-off, but as a series of transactions, what you'll see them often doing is pushing that mission and the reporting requirements, and perhaps even saying, okay, this is as much as you can do as an early startup, but we have a bigger expectation of what you're going to do from impact when you get to your mid-level, as you get more experience. And so the reporting requirements actually on impact might become more significant because the resources are there. And so those that are now looking at their investments or those enterprises that are looking at their investors as a place to go back to again and again, and not just one-off deals, I think there's really interesting work being done there that actually keeps pushing, not only locking the mission, but opening the mission to get bigger and more accountable. The one thing that you had mentioned is those that take place after there's no longer financial interest. And there has been some people trying to have mission locks that survive the life of an investment. Those haven't been tested much in courts. I'll be curious to see if they really can stand up. But we are seeing, as you pointed out, with ESOPs, employee ownership, with perpetual trust, structures like Patagonia has put in place. We are seeing interesting, innovative work where you divide governance interest from financial interest, so that those who are getting the financial returns are not the people sitting at the table saying, are we still advancing the mission? And that separation, I think, can possibly help these missions endure, because it basically says short-term financial interest. You're not even going to be in the room to tell us what to do. So that is a place, I think, where innovation is worth watching and observing, because that might be the way to do it beyond the time that you're actually in a shorter term investment.